Hi friends, welcome in the session of urinary system. This is the second lecture on urinary system. In this we are going to discuss urine formation. What is urine formation? So it is a process for formation of urine, and from where urine can be formed, it can be formed from the blood. If blood is going to be filtered, it is responsible for formation of urine. Urine formation can be occurred by the most probably by three processes. One is ultrafiltration, it is also called as glomerular filtration. Second is tubular reabsorption, and third is tubular secretion. So in today's presentation we will give more focus on glomerular filtration, or it is also called as ultrafiltration. In a day we can filter almost 180 liter of blood in a whole 24 hours. In case of females, 150 ml of blood can be filtered through glomerular filter. As there are four processes that we should know. The first is glomerular filtration, creates a plasma like filtrate in the blood. Second, tubular reabsorptions, so from where the whatever the vital electrolytes, vital elements are there, they can be reabsorbed back toward the blood. In the glomerular filtration, the blood which comes from the afferent arteriole, they will come into the glomerulus, and from glomerulus they will filter almost 20%, 15 to 20% of this glomerulus content can be filtered, and it will come out through this efferent arteriole, and again it will connected through the peritubular arteries to this tubule, and it is responsible for again reabsorption. Actually there is difference between absorption and reabsorption. What is absorption? When any element comes into the another medium for the first time, it is called absorption. Now when the blood enters into this glomerulus and glomerulus will absorb that, it is called absorption. And when whatever the elements, whatever the nutrients, electrolytes are there in this tubule, when they are coming back towards the blood, it is called reabsorption. When anything come in again, when anything revert back to ourselves, it is called as reabsorption. So here the process of reabsorption occurs. Whatever the nutrients which are coming into the tubule, they are revert back into the main bloodstream, into this arteriole. So here the tubular reabsorption removes useful solutes from the filtrate, return them to the blood. There may be some electrolytes like sodium electrolytes or potassium ions, chloride ions, glucose, magnesium. After that vital drugs can be reabsorbed, various food elements can be reabsorbed. Next to this, tubular secretions, it removes the additional wastes from the blood, add them to the filtrate. So in that last process of tubular secretion, if any waste material which comes into the peritubular capillaries, they will release them into this tube, into this tubule, so that the waste material should go throughout the body. They should go through the urine, and they should be come into the wastage material. As wastage material, they should come there, or any element which is more in concentration, for example sodium ions, if they are more in blood, so they can be released into the urine back. And the vital elements like potassium, they can be stored back into the blood. Last is concentration removes water from the urine and concentrate wastes. So in the last process, they remove water from the urine. If extra water is there, again it can be removed back. That also depends on the disease condition, that also depends on the humidity, on the climate. In the summer condition, in the dehydrated conditions, the water can be reabsorbed at the last end part of our tubules. So in these fashions it can be reversed back. That's why at the last the intercalated cells and principal cells are there. The principal cell is responsible for the center for antidiuretic hormone as well as the sensor for aldosterol release. So both the things are responsible for decreased filtration rate, and the intercalated cells are responsible for neural harmonization. So in this fashion they are responsible for the control of this flow of water. Water can be reverted back. You might be aware of that whatever the content comes into this tubule, out of them 99% can be reabsorbed through paratubular capillaries. Now here the glomerular filtrate. What is glomerular filtrate? So whatever the blood which is coming from the afferent arteriole, they will come into the glomerulus. So this content is called as filtration fraction. Out of them almost 60 to 20% going to be filtered, and they will come back into the efferent arteriole, and remaining all means almost 80% will release into this tubule, and that element is called as glomerular filtrate. It is just like funnel, and we are keeping one filter paper. This is the filter paper and this is the funnel, so from which the blood enters here and will filter, and whatever the content is here, it is called as glomerular filtrate. So this is called glomerular filtrate, and this is called filtration fraction or filtration fragment. And here you can see tubular fluid is here, and finally it will get converted into the pale yellow colored urine. The color is due to the urobilinogen to our urine, and to our feces the color due to the stercobilin, which is the product of RBC. Now the filtration membrane. The filtration membrane plays a great role into the filtration of the filtration content or filtration fraction which comes over the glomerulus. So there are the three layers of filtration membrane occurs into our this glomerulus. So together the glomerular capillaries and the podocytes which completely encircle the capillaries, they will completely encircle these capillaries, and they will form a leaky barrier which is known as filtration membrane. So this is nothing but the filtration. It is a leaky membrane. From here the RBC, WBC and the electrolyte sodium, potassium, urea, urine, uric acid, the amino acids, they can be filtered through this. So the vital elements, they will reabsorb, they will come out from this. They are the penetration epithelium, this is the basement membrane, and they are the food processes of the podocytes. Podocytes is food processes, and the food projections are there, they are called as PD cells. Okay, so this is called as filtration membrane. So this sandwich like assembly permits filtration of water, small solutes, but prevents filtration of most plasma proteins, blood cells and platelets. They won't allow RBC or platelets through pass through this lumen, and they will enter into the tubule. So they won't allow this. Means they will absorb all the RBC, WBC, platelets into the glomerular fraction. They won't allow into the glomerular filtrate. They will reverse back all these things. This sandwich like assembly permits filtration of water and small solutes. Now a glomerular endothelial cell, basal lamina and the filtration slits formed by a podocytes. Now we will see one by one what is this. First we will start with this fenestration epithelium. The glomerular endothelial cells are quite leaky because they have large fenestrations. So these are nothing but the fenestrations, means large holes are there, and that pore size is near about 0.07 to 0.1 micrometer in diameter. So this size permits all solids in blood plasma to exit the glomerular capillaries but prevent the filtration of blood cells. It may be RBC, WBC, platelets located among the glomerular capillaries and in the cleft between afferent and efferent. Means it is the cleft, means it is the passageway between the afferent and efferent arteriole are called mesangial. Now next is basal lamina. It is also called as basal membrane. This basal lamina is a layer of acellular material between the endothelium and the podocytes. It consists of minute collagen fibers. It contains the collagen fibers and proteoglycans. This proteoglycans is the part of carbohydrates. So it proteoglycans in the, and it also comes into the cell wall of various bacteria. So peptidoglycans in a glycoprotein matrix. A negative charges in the matrix prevents filtration of large negatively charged plasma proteins. So it is responsible for filtration of various plasma proteins which are having large size or large negatively charged plasma proteins. They can be filtered from this basal lamina. And after this, the next part is, they are called as pedicels. They are also called as food processes. They are the food projections coming from the podocytes. Podocyte is the food shaped projections, and they are producing these food processes. So these are nothing but the pedicels. They are extending from each podocytes are thousands of foot-like processes. They are called as pedicels that wrap around the glomerular capillaries. So they will wrapping these glomerular capillaries. They will come over that. They will cross over to the glomerular capillaries. The space between the pedicel are the filtration slit. A thin membrane, a slit membrane, extend across each membrane, each filtration slit. It permits the passage of molecules having a diameter smaller than 0.006 to 0.007 micrometer, including water. Now this is the membrane which is responsible for pass out the various types of elements, nutrients and the electrolytes. For example, they are able to pass the water molecules, glucose, vitamins, amino acids, very small plasma proteins, ammonia, urea and ions. Less than 1% of albumin, the most plentiful plasma protein, passes the slit. They will pass this filtration slit membrane because the diameter is 0.007 micrometer. Now after this, we will discuss regarding the filtration membrane. Almost any molecule smaller than the filtration membrane into the capsular space, which include the water electrolytes, glucose, amino acids, lipids, vitamins and nitrogenous wastes. So these are the elements which are going to be filtered through this filtration membrane. Kidneys infections and trauma commonly damage the filtration membrane and allow plasma proteins and blood cells to pass through. That's why the blood cells and the plasma proteins won't allow to get entered into the filtration, the glomerular filtrate. Now here we can see the position of kidneys. It is at the T12. up to the L3. This is the L3. It contains, our urinary system contains the ureter, kidneys, urinary bladder and urethra. Now, what is the net pressure of filtration? That filtration net pressure that we must know. The filtration net pressure is 10 mmHg. Actually, it is having some formula. The net pressure is equal to GBHP. That GBHP is nothing but the glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure minus CHP, which is nothing but the capsular hydrostatic pressure, minus BCOP, it is blood colloidal osmotic pressure. Now, whereas this glomerular hydrostatic pressure, it is also called as capillary pressure. It is a pressure which is coming from the afferent arteriole. The blood start to enter into this filtrate. It is a glomerulus, and from the glomerulus they will try to get entered into the tubule. So that pressure is called as capillary pressure or glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure. And after that, that pressure is 55 mmHg. After that, next is blood colloidal osmotic pressure. That pressure is here in green color, and that blood is opposing the pressure which can be exerted by the hydrostatic pressure which is coming from the afferent blood, and which is 30 mmHg. And another pressure which is again against the blood hydrostatic pressure, that pressure is called as capsular hydrostatic pressure. This is the Bowman's capsule. This capsule is able to generate its own pressure. That's why it is called capsular pressure. So it is called capsular hydrostatic pressure. Hydro means the water. Here almost 90% part is water. Blood contains water. So that hydrostatic pressure, it is a capsule generated hydrostatic pressure, and which is 15 mmHg, which is against the pressure which is coming from the capillary pressure or blood hydrostatic pressure. So the total pressure is 10 mmHg. Means the glomerular blood hydrostatic pressure 55 minus blood colloidal osmotic pressure 30 minus capsular hydrostatic pressure, means 55 minus 45, which is 10 mmHg. Means our net filtration pressure is 10 mmHg. Now there are various points which are related with the filtration rate. In that we will discuss one by one. Now here the GFR, that depends on the vasodilatation of the afferent arteriole and stretching of muscles to the walls of the afferent arterioles, and the blood pressure will rise and it will give pressure on the afferent arterioles, and afferent arterioles can be constricted. The constriction of the afferent arteriole in the glomerulus will occur, and due to which it decreases the glomerular filtration rate. It decreases the speed of filtration, and due to which the ultimate effect is that it will decrease the glomerular filtration rate. And after that, and it is also called as the myogenic mechanism of autoregulation. Next point is the tubuloglomerular mechanism of autoregulation. So in this case there is the role of macula densa cell, which is the part of juxtaglomerulus apparatus. So this macula densa cell are responsible for the absorption of sodium and chloride. But when there is decline into the absorption of sodium and chloride, which prevent the secretion of nitric oxide, and if nitric oxide secretion is going to be decreased, and as we know nitric oxide is responsible for vasodilatation, and if it prevents the secretion of nitric oxide, the ultimate effect is that vasoconstriction, and due to that vasoconstriction, the constriction of your arterial wall going to be developed, and also there is constriction of tubules will be developed, and the ultimate effect is that there is decrease into the filtration flow, and also sodium decrease in the sodium chloride ascending limb of Henle. So in this fashion it will also decrease the filtration rate. If you will see the next point in this, actually this is the summary of filtration rate, how each and every aspect of our body affects on our glomerular filtration rate, that we are discussing here. Now after that, next is systemic blood pressure. Now here the hormonal renin angiotensin mechanism is here, in which the systemic blood pressure is here. Now as we know, the blood volume, if it will increase, it will also increase the sodium ion resorptions, because as we know, the volume increases, the volume of the blood, it contains the water always contains the sodium ions, so sodium ions also going to be reabsorbed along with the water, and due to which blood volume can be increased, and if blood volume can be increased, it will increase the peripheral resistance, total peripheral resistance going to be increased. And in the kidney tubules, there is it occurs due to the adrenal cortex which release the aldosterone, and due to which the ultimate effect is blood pressure can be increased. After that, now here the granular cells of juxtaglomerular apparatus of kidney, they will release the renin. As you know, renin is the hormone which is responsible for increase the blood pressure. How it increase the blood pressure? It will catalyze the cascade resulting conversion. It will the angiotensinogen is there, it is going to convert into the, actually angiotensinogen, it is produced into the liver cells, in the hepatocytes it is going to be produced, and it is an inactive form. This is in inactive form. When it will be active when it will get converted into the angiotensin second, and angiotensin second, when it will convert, there is one enzyme, it is called angiotensin converting enzyme, which will convert angiotensin 1 to angiotensin second, and if it will convert, this angiotensin second is responsible for release of the aldosterone from the adrenal gland, which is at the superior position of our kidney. And the another effect is that this effect we have already discussed. Due to aldosterone, the blood volume can be increased, it will increase the blood pressure, and here the systemic arterioles, they will do the vasoconstriction of that arterioles, and due to which also ultimate effect is the blood pressure can be increased. So in this fashion it will produce the effects. And here the another effect, it is called baroreceptors in the blood pressure in the systemic circulations. Due to the baroreceptors, it can be affected by the sympathetic nervous system, and there is a release of noradrenaline as a neuronal innervation. The noradrenaline can be released into the synapse, due to which again the blood pressure can be elevated, and in this fashion it will affects on our blood pressure. So the glomerular filtration rate is going to be increase our blood pressure in this fashion. Now this glomerular filtration rate is the amount of filtrate formed per minute by the two kidneys combined. For the average adult male, the glomerular filtration is about 125 ml per minute, and in case of female it is 105 ml per minute. In a whole day, in 24 hours, our body can filter almost 180 liter of the blood in a day, and in case of female it is 150 liter in a day. An average 99% of filtrate is reabsorbed, means from here whatever the filtrate is there, it is called glomerular filtrate. So whatever glomerular filtrate comes here into this tubule, out of them 99% filtrate can be reabsorbed back into the paratubular arteries, means it comes back into the systemic blood circulation. So that 1 to 2 liter, means in a day 1 to 2 liter of urine can be formed and excreted. That also depends on our disease condition and also on climatic conditions. The GFR must be precisely controlled. If GFR is too high, it increases the urine output, threat to the dehydration and electrolyte depletion. So that's why it should be under the control. If it is too high, definitely it will increase the condition like dehydration and electrolyte depletion, because if the rate is high, in that case the in nephron, in the tubule not, the capillary is not able to reabsorb the vital elements like potassium or sodium or chloride, because if rate is too much high, in that case some ions will lose into the urine, and due to which the depletion or the scarcity of that ions will develop into our kidney. If GFR is too low, insufficient excretion of waste. If it is too low, in that case less urine will be produced, as it occurs in case of the summer days. There is a very less, almost half liter or 1 liter, less than half liter can also produce in a one day. The only way to adjust GFR from moment to moment is to change glomerular blood pressure. So the blood pressure is having great impact on our glomerular filtration rate. Renal autoregulation. The ability of kidney to maintain a relative stable GFR in spite of changes is 75 to 175 mmHg in arterial blood pressure. The nephron has two ways to prevent drastic changes in GFR when blood pressure rises: by constriction of afferent arteriole to reduce blood flow into the glomerulus, and second, by dilation of the efferent arteriole to allow the blood flow out more easily, so that there should not be more pressure on our glomerulus and on our tubule. Change in an opposite direction if blood pressure falls. Now the mechanisms of renal autoregulation. There are two mechanisms. One is called myogenic response and second is called tubuloglomerular feedback. Now first, myogenic response. In case of myogenic response, at the afferent arteriole, the pressure comes, and due to which the stretching of this afferent arteriole occurs. Due to this, what happens? There is a ultimate increase in blood pressure occurs, and due to increase in blood pressure, what happens? It will do the constriction of the muscle which is available at the afferent arteriole, and also it will going to be constrict the tubular muscles and also the glomerular muscles here. So at the glomerular, the constriction of the smooth muscles at this glomerulus occurs, and also at our afferent arteriole, it will also do the constriction of afferent arterioles, due to which the less blood get entered into the glomerulus, and the ultimate effect is that the glomerular filtration rate is going to be affected. It will decrease. Simply, it will decrease the glomerular filtration rate. It is called a myogenic response. Second is tubuloglomerular feedback. So in this mechanism, it occurs only due to the juxtaglomerulus apparatus. So here the macular densa cells are here. They are called macular densa cells. What is juxtaglomerulus apparatus? It is near the glomerulus, the part of distal convoluted tubule which attached to the glomerulus, then that part produces the juxta means near, it produces the juxtaglomerulus apparatus, and these juxtaglomerulus cells are there, they are called macrodenser cells. These macrodenser cells are having great role into the absorption of sodium ions and chloride ions. So when it fails, when the glomerular filtration rate is high, in that case, when it fails to absorb the sodium ions and chloride ions, due to which the depletion of sodium ions and potassium ions is there, and what is the ultimate effect, and due to which what happens, the nitric oxide NO, the nitric oxide nitric oxide secretion is going to be inhibited, and as we know, nitric oxide is responsible for vasodilatations. So due to their inhibition of nitric oxide, the constriction of blood vessels occurs, and their ultimate effect will be on our afferent arteriole, and the afferent arteriole and also to the peritubular arteries, the vasoconstriction occurs, and due to that vasoconstriction, the ultimate effect is that the filtration, glomerular filtration rate is going to be hindered, it can be decreased, and in this fashion we have discussed the tubuloglomerular feedback. So in this fashion the glomerular filtration rate can be declined. Okay, so in this fashion we have completed this first part of urine formation. Thank you.